G'day watchers, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have a piece from William Wood Watches. Now they're not a brand new company, but this is their latest piece which they have sent through for a review. Now William Wood, it has an interesting backstory. The name of the company is the grandfather of the founder, who was a bit of a decorated firefighter and apparently a bit of a hero in his time. Unfortunately, he did pass away some years ago, but his name lives on in the company. Now, William Wood watches have a little bit of a method of using historic materials upcycled into elements which are used in the watches themselves. I won't say too much more, and that you can read about the history of the company on their website, which of course I will link below. Now, today's watch comes in this rather funky, bright red carry case. I guess it's kind of a firefighter theme, which is really the background of the company. So without further ado, let's just flip the camera around and take a closer look at this watch. Alright guys, so here is the package on the table. So it is red leather and it's kind of a travel watch roll. Kind of this signature logo of William Wood, which is a fireman's helmet right there. You might think that this only rolls and it doesn't spin, but actually it spins pretty darn well. I think this is a 4 out of 5 at least. It's actually fairly nicely balanced in the middle there. All right, let's just get this open. So, kind of suede in the inside, William Wood on the top there in gold. And there's enough room for 3 watches. So I'm going to show you what else is in here. So they've provided the steel bracelet, and later on I'll go into this. I won't talk about it right now, but later on I'll show you a shot of that. And then this is an alternate strap, which is what they call the red fire hose strap. I don't think this suits this particular watch. This suits their red watch better. So I'm not even going to show that particular one. And then here we have the watch featured today. Let's just get it off the roll here and put this aside to show you guys the watch in closer detail here. So guys, this is the William Wood Valiant Automatic, and in this color variation, this is called the white watch. Okay, they do come in a number of other variations. The standout thing about this particular watch is that it does have those rose gold highlights, which most of the others do not. It's kind of plain steel in most of the others. This one is rose gold with what is really a very light gray dial here. Now each watch is going to be limited to 250 per color variation, in my understanding. And you can see here this one is a bit special because this one's the one they're sending around, and it's number 1 out of 250 there on the case back. You can see right there. The going price, the full MSRP for this is £695 in this particular version with the Japanese movement. With an ETA movement, so Swiss made movement, it is going to be £995. So that is the list price. I think you may be able to get it on discount sometimes, but I'm not sure. Right now on the website, that's the listed price for these particular pieces. Okay, so first up, as per usual, let's talk about the movement in this particular watch, which is none other than the NH35A. So, not going to go through the details. You've seen this so many times in so many watches. The rated accuracy in this particular movement is shown on the bottom left there, and in actual use, this is running pretty good. It's actually just slightly slow at -3 seconds per day in the 5 days that I've had this running on the wrist here. Quick set date in this case is implemented on the 3 o'clock window, which you can see there on screen. It is actually black writing on white disk, so pretty much the default way this window is usually presented. Okay, enough about the movement. Let's talk about the case here. So the case is 41mm diameter, 316L steel. Overall thickness, including the top of the crystal there, is somewhat chunky. It is actually 16mm in overall thickness here. The lug width is 20mm, and the lug-to-lug distance between my thumbs there is 49mm in this case. The weight of the watch with this rubber strap, silicone rubber, is 98 grams. If you put it on the steel bracelet, which I just showed you earlier, it's 140 grams in total. So it's slightly more than 40 grams increase if you swap out the rubber for the steel bracelet. 140 is still not too heavy. It's actually a fairly pleasant weight, I think, in my opinion. Okay, so talk about the finishing then. What we have here is a rose gold, I think PVD, obviously, bezel, polished finishing at the top surface there. And then in terms of finishing on the case itself, it's brushing all over. So longitudinal on the top, horizontal brushing on the side, and longitudinal brushing on the bottom of the lugs there. The case back itself, as you can see, is actually polished, and then of course there's a differential finishing where the words are at the back of the case back detailing various specifications. Right, so with that screw down display case back and a screw down crown with a nice brass insert, right, so that's a historic fireman's helmet that has been kind of repurposed, remade into that brass insert. They've gone for total water rating of 100 meter. Good enough to swim. You can kind of be confident because it's got screw down construction, both on the case back and crown, I think. All right, so let's move on to the dial here. So let's just zoom in a little bit. So the dial here is a light gray matte finish, right? There's a slight texture, very fine texture on the dial here. It's got a kind of that gold tone applied logo, but otherwise the details are printed, including the checkered pattern chapter ring around the periphery. And that checkered pattern is, again, a historic callback. Supposedly, it's the pattern that is seen on the side of British fire engines, at least in the past. The hands are rose gold tone baton hands, with seconds that has a lollipop loom pip, but with an interesting counterbalance. The counterbalance is, I guess, inspired by the bell chime of vintage fire engines. That's what they've stated, that where that design comes from. And then the loom has a bit of patina. Hopefully you can appreciate that in the macro shots that I will show here. And it's a sandwich style loom. I'm not sure whether it's a full sandwich, but at least those hour indices are all recessed into the dial, so it has a sandwich appearance here. In terms of how it functions in the dark, not too bad. It does glow mostly through the night. It's super luminova, and I will put a loom shot right here, of course, for you guys to appreciate how it shines in the dark. Okay, so that's the dial. Let's talk about the bezel surrounding it, which you've seen me show this polished gold tone, and then it's got a black and gold steel insert. That's really what you're seeing in there, black and rose gold. 120 clicks, so let's just see how it sounds. 6, 10, 5. So 20 clicks, right? 120 clicks. Fairly chunky, I gotta say. That sound is quite a nice clunk. Quite audible, and it hardly any black play at all. Okay, so fairly nicely done. Let's just get it back to the 12 o'clock position. Okay, so 120 click unidirectional dive style bezel, of course, and then on top of the dial is a very nicely done, I have to say, this is one of my favorite parts of the watch, is that double dome, but with kind of a box edge sapphire crystal internal anti-reflective coating. And so it gives you kind of, because it's boxed in the edge, you kind of get those distortions playing there. And I really like, I'm quite a sucker for good sapphire crystals with box edges like this one. Okay, so that's the watch. Let's talk about the strap now. So the strap here, you can see there's old printing there. So this is an upcycled British fire hose. So one that was going to be kind of retired. They've upcycled it, kind of stitched it into this silicone rubber, nicely finished into it. In the back, of course, is new silicone rubber. So they call this the military green, is what this particular variation is. And then it's got a polished steel buckle with the company name right there. Okay. And that's it. All right, so let's just put it on the wrist now for a wrist shot for you guys. And there we go, the William Wood Valiant Automatic on my 17 centimeter wrist. fits, fairly well. It is 49mm lug to lug width, 41mm diameter. So it sits all right on my wrist, but it does ride slightly hard because it is 16mm on the thickness, and that's how that strap looks. Okay, so that's the watch there. Now, before I move on to what I have enjoyed, let's just talk about this particular steel bracelet. Now, I haven't had time to swap it in, but I will put a shot here to let you guys see how it looks like on the wrist shot and how it fits on the watch. Hopefully you can appreciate that in this kind of insert shot. So the bracelet is steel Planet Ocean style. I want to call this Planet Ocean because this really does remind me of Omega. 3-piece per link that you can see there. So brushed on the side with polished center links, solid end links, right? You can see the solid end links there. But in terms of adjustment, it is actually push pin and collars is what you have here. It's got a pressed metal clasp, right, with a pressed metal keeper and 4-point micro adjustment, relatively solid arms. You've kind of seen this configuration in other watches, I think. Okay, so enough about this bracelet there. Let's go back to the watch itself and what have I enjoyed about this. Look, I think it's a very nicely designed piece. I really think it's nicely done, right? The elements that they've brought together here. The execution is, fairly good quality, and, finishing wise, nothing too much to complain, right? There's no transition to polish, but, what they have done is pretty well done. And the strap as well, I think is actually pretty well finished. The way that they've kind of integrated, the old rubber into the silicone, the way that they've stitched, it looks pretty, good craftsmanship. This is what this appears to me. I think overall the design has great touches. I like the sandwich loom. I like the checkered chapter ring, the historic touches in terms of the brass insert on the crown, as well as the upcycled rubber, the British fire hose. And then, of course, I've mentioned this already, the gorgeous partly boxed sapphire crystal. I like those elements of this watch. What are the things that are somewhat of concern to me? I think this is personal. Of course, this is going to be subjective. I think it's somewhat chunky on the thickness. So really, that's what I feel about this. A personal preference of mine would be, I think, for the bezel to be somewhat flatter. This one has a bit of a convexity to it. You can see it rises up. And for the case to be, somewhat thinner, and then you would achieve, maybe a 14mm or less thickness. I think that would be, to me at least, more desirable. And then I think overall, the value proposition of this watch, at the price that it goes for, I think it would depend on, individuals gravitating to the concept of the brand. I think the brand has some interest there. It's got good quality, but it isn't Swiss made. So for the price, you're going to, really want to, identify with what this company is representing, their modus operandi, if you will. Okay, guys, so that's my thoughts on this watch. Let's flip the camera around now for the wrap up. So there you go, guys, my review of the William Wood Valiant, in this case the white watch version. Let me know your thoughts about the piece. Now, I think there are quite a lot of points of interest, certainly fascinating bits of history, particularly the brass and the rubber, which has been upcycled into the watch. And of course, it's got that interesting history behind the company. So guys, if you have any experience with William Wood themselves, whether some of their earlier pieces or this one, let me know your thoughts. Would love to hear them. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. New content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys again next time.